You love this game? I mean, love it with your whole heart. Because if you don't, let's not even bother. I love this game. I live this game. And there's 1,000 other guys waiting in the wings who are obsessed with this game. Obsession's gonna be talent every time. You got all the talent in the world, but are you obsessed? Is it all you ever think about? Let's face it, it's you against you out there. When you walk on that court, you have to think, I am the best guy out there. I don't care if LeBron's playing. So let me ask you again. Do you love this game?
Tune up, level up your fun. Tune up, your quest has now begun. Tune up, we'll show you how it's done. Tune up, tune up. Tune up, tune up. Tune up, level up your fun. Tune up, your quest.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Tabletop Tune-Up. My name is Mark, and I'm here with my friend Ben.
There we go.
We got a special guest today.
We do.
We do. This is an old friend of mine named Brandon. We go back a long ways. And before we get into you, Brandon, real quick, do you love the game, Brandon?
Oh, I'm a lifer. I got a life sentence, man.
That's right. That's right. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Brandon.
Well, game-wise, I can say I've basically been doing this since early '80s. I was, I was a little kid when D&D came out, and I got hooked. But I was also told as a kid that you grow out of things like this, and I can tell you emphatically that's just not true. Passion of mine, and I've enjoyed it my whole life.
Yeah, your parents are, I'm sure, disappointed that you didn't grow out of this.
Yeah. I think they kept hoping, at some point, maybe.
That's awesome. Well, Brandon, Ben and I have also, we're kind of all in that same group, I think. We've all kind of started at a very young, impressionable age, going back to the 80s, early 80s. And here we are today, the old grown-ards of gaming.
That's right. And the game has changed a lot.
It has.
It has, but has it? Like, not as much as I would have thought.
Well, is it the game or is it us?
Yeah, but yeah, that's true.
I don't want to talk about the latter.
Well, so let's actually hit the Wayback Machine for a minute. There's an old reference. And then let's talk about kind of how you got into this whole thing. So Can you talk, Brandon, a little bit about what was the first game you played, first game you ran? How does that look in the rearview mirror? What is it that got you into this hobby?
Yeah, so it was early 80s, and I was in third grade when one of my buddies introduced me to D&D. Very taboo back then. And so one of those where I wasn't allowed to play it at home, but man, I could play it over at my friend's house. And so definitely spent some time playing D&D on the side. And then because I couldn't play it at home, I decided I'd just make my own version and start drawing stuff and coming up with basically the exact same idea in a third grader's mind of what D&D role playing is. And, I would do that in order to still have fun without playing the actual Dungeons and Dragons game.
I love that you improvised your way into it.
It's so funny. I actually still have some of the pictures that I drew of some of these monsters, either copied right out of the books or out of my imagination. And there's some truly funny ones that I envision.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I want to see some of those sometimes, but I had kind of a similar thing growing up. Like my parents didn't want to buy me any toy guns. And so, the first thing we did is we'd go outside, find a stick, looks like a gun, and we're shooting each other anyway.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to say, I built mine with Legos. It was same thing. My parents would not let us have toy guns in the house.
Yeah. When you can't have something, it was like, oh, well, shoot, But what's funny is a couple of years later, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles came out with a role-playing game. And that was okay. So needless to say, I switched gears to Palladium big time, got into their fantasy role-playing game, and did kind of cruise through all whether it was Rifts or TMNT or whatever, all of that through the majority of high school.
And listeners, this is how I met Brandon, actually. Brandon had moved to the Northwest. His parents had moved up to the Seattle region.
Yes.
And like his parents and my parents met at church, and they were like, hey, our kids are going to be friends. You know, like that whole thing, like you're just like, oh, grown. Mom, Dad, what are you doing? Like,
Right.
but Brandon had these books. Like I'd never seen a role-playing game. I didn't know what one was. And he had these Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle books. I was like, this is amazing. Like you get to roll dice and like, this is so cool. And we almost immediately started creating our own game based off those rules.
And I think one thing I'll say is it was so much easier back then to do that, because there was, even in the material that was published, so much of it was left to your imagination, you know, so you really could do your own world building a lot back then. It's easy.
Well, we also had a lot of time that we don't have now.
Right.
I remember distinctly us making, I think we had saw the movie Blood of Heroes with Rutger Hauer. And for whatever reason, we were like, we're going to make a game off that. And we built up the whole rules for this thing. And it was all Palladium, of course. And we never played it. It's like everything else we ever built.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You get, you know, part of it is the fun of just building.
You know, what's funny is you were talking about the bit about how we don't have time anymore. But of course, when you get to this part of your life, you get a little bit more money. And so I think you still see the same dynamic, but it's not, I made so many characters. I have books and games that I will never get to play because I can't get enough time with the right people to build the campaigns there.
So one thing, Ben, is Brandon was a gifted writer from really early on. When I met him, he was writing awesome stories. And one thing I always remember with your games, even the early ones, is you had great box text. And Ben, for people who don't know, what is box text?
Box text is that text that we read to the players, right?
Early on, when you were playing these games and everything was so imagination born, you had to paint a picture. And I would say gamers more or less now have the ability to create the maps on, you know, on the computer or you have the images, and you have so much more that visually is going to take over an aspect where when I was definitely early on, it was a piece of paper and a pencil with a hastily drawn map to just kind of show where you might be, or your, you know, the building might be. Everything else needed to be some kind of text, you know, something to grab the attention and the imagination of the people at the table so that they could share the vision. And so I think that maybe, I don't want to say it's a lost art, because I think there's incredibly creative people today, just like there were, you know, in the 80s when this really kind of kicked off. But I would say back then you didn't have a choice. You had to have some kind of, you know, some kind of fill in to get to set the mood, set the table, set the scene.
Hey, could you give us an example of box text? I asked you to write something up just for our listeners to get a flavor of what we're talking about. Maybe having actual box text that we could have an example.
One thing to know about text is it doesn't need to be long. I think if anything, you can start to ramble and actually lose the attention of your players if you're trying to write this incredibly large story every time you're painting a picture. So my advice would actually be to keep it to like a paragraph in most situations. I didn't write something new. I just borrowed something from a campaign from about a year ago. It's just an intro portion to something that was about to happen. But I'll just read it. I mean, it's very short, but it hopefully sets the scene. Cold winds assault your party in waves, and flurries of snow intermittently steal your vision as you forge your way up the snow-blasted path. Single file is your only option at this point, as walls of white powder press in from the left and right. With relief, a short time later, you round a bend, and through the snow flurries see the vaulted rooftop of what could only be the Citadel, perhaps a quarter mile away. An expanse widens out before you and beckons your feet to hurry forward to the awaiting structure and reprieve from the cold you've endured, but you find yourself hesitating instead. Perhaps it's the numbing of your senses during the long ascent, or perhaps it's something else.
Well done.
I was going to say, I love that, because what's cool about that is it's doing a couple things really, really well. One is it's giving you a sense of place and setting, so you kind of know where you are and what's happening around you. But then it also gives you this wonderful kind of feel for how it is that you're probably feeling. You know, you can feel the cold, you can feel the refuge of that citadel ahead. But then again, there's something about it that maybe is putting you off. That's great. So tell me a little bit about what it is that you enjoy about running games. Some people, I think, are frustrated writers who end up becoming GMs, and you can kind of tell that they want to like write a book instead. What is it about the social experience of being a GM that you think is unique or interesting?
I would say, and I do love to write. So I'm not an author, but I love to write. And what I think is so incredibly different about being a GM is you're not the author or the writer just telling the story and controlling everything that's going to happen. So to me, being part of something that is a social experience where you're sharing that story with other people, friends and family, and you all are kind of creating it together. You might be using the guardrails to kind of keep it in a certain direction, but there's no way that you could predict what's going to happen from moment to moment, because you can't be in the minds of your players and you can't be in control of the dice. You're only controlling the setting. And so there's something about that has always been very appealing to me as a writer, because I enjoy kind of creating the setting and then seeing where it goes.
Yeah, there's a little bit of alchemy to it all, and everybody's kind of pouring their potion, I guess, in there,
Right.
trying to create something magical. And yeah, I think you're right. I think it's what attracts all of us to this game in some way, shape, or form, I would imagine.
Kind of a creative potluck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think when you're, and this is kind of an interesting thought, because when you're playing as opposed to GMing, you still get to have that very vested kind of, feel like you're part of the story. And so this isn't just a GM, I'm going to do this no matter what. They say they're going to turn left, I'm going to make them turn right anyway. I think it's a collaboration that when it's done right, you actually can have a lot of enjoyment as the player, or as the GM, in totally different ways, but you're all kind of creating that story together and having fun with that story together and where it takes you.
You kind of segued into something that I wanted to ask you, because you're what we call a forever GM. You've been running games, and anytime you're in a group, you're probably the person running the game. You get rare opportunities to be a player. When you do have that opportunity, what is your hope for that game? What is your hope for that experience?
Oh man. Well, okay. So there's a couple things that come to mind. First off, you don't want to be that player. Every GM has that player that just either derails the game or is the thorn in the side of the group and the table. So I think you have a higher level of just being aware of what a GM is thinking and what they're hoping to accomplish, and trying to be part of that and not be a thorn in the side. But I would say more, off of that subject, I would say as a GM, you get all these ideas of these cool characters along the way. You think, oh man, this one would be so fun to play. Oh, this one would be great to have in this type of game, and then you get the opportunity to play, and it's like, you got all these choices, because most of them might become an NPC of yours, in a game that you're running, but there's a few that you just kind of keep in your back pocket and think, oh man, if I ever play this game, I'm gonna definitely want to be this type of character. So that it becomes you have a lot of choices and you don't have a lot of opportunities. So you got this bag full of potentials.
What's funny is they say doctors make the worst patients, and I think GMs are absolutely capable of being the worst players. Like
that could be true. And having working in a hospital, that aphorism is 100% correct, Ben.
Yeah. Well, I remember I was playing one game one time where somebody who'd been a GM, this might have been you or it might have been somebody else. I can't really remember who it was now, but like they we get to this village and they start running around town asking the names of all the NPCs. I'm like, stop it. Because I can't like come up with like tons of names off the cuff, you know. They're like, well, who's the guy in the inn? How about the stable keeper? What's the guy at the blacksmith's name? And I'm like, shut up, I don't have to come up with all these names.
That might have been me.
That sounds like you.
Knowing that he didn't write the stuff down, and
Yeah.
and I'm just trying to put him on the spot.
Yeah.
That sounds like something I would do. I don't know if it was.
Mad.
Okay, so in the spirit of always improving as a GM and preparing smartly and all those kinds of things, what was kind of something you've learned lately that has been kind of a revelation, or you know, I'm thinking about how we grow and progress as a GM, even when you've been doing it all these many years. Like, what's something that you've learned recently that you thought was really interesting, or that may have changed how you might run your games?
Okay, I definitely can answer that, and I think that's a great question. I think what has changed over the years is there was too many times where I allowed that next great campaign to end another campaign early, shelf it a little early, and looking back, I would say, man, you listen to your players more. If they're not ready to give up that campaign, then maybe you have to take a break from it. Maybe you shelf it for a little bit to come up with like that next, you know, set of adventures or tiers or whatnot. But I think it's easy to say, I've got this good idea for a campaign. I'm gonna, you know, guys, what do you think about, you know, let's switch gears and do this? And everybody's like, oh yeah, that's great. Then that's a good time to do it. But if some of the, you know, no, we're still kind of enjoying this and we want to kind of see this ride out a little longer, that'd be the biggest thing that I think I've learned over the years is stop changing the campaigns when it's good for you as the GM, but listen to the players, because it's easy for, as a GM, you say, man, I've invested a lot of time in this campaign. I've put a lot of effort into building this thing up and creating this. I think we forget that the players have invested a lot of time as well. And they have a lot of vested interest in that player or in that character rather. And what they've seen with that character and what they've kind of maybe grown with that character in a certain role or over these levels. And it may be where they're just getting excited about what the character's about to do. And then all of a sudden get kind of shortchanged, would feel like, man, I wanted to see this through a little bit longer and I didn't get a chance to do it. And I think that would be the big thing, is listening to the players and making sure that everybody's on the same page. If they're not ready to take a break from it or to end it, but you are, then I would suggest maybe just putting it on the shelf for a little bit and then circling back to it.
Yeah, that's some really strong advice. And actually, I think it's something that in this last game I've ran, I've kind of run into that myself, like just wanting to, you know, put this thing to bed. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Like I want to get to the finale, you know, I want to kind of get there, but you know, we're just not quite there. And I'm, you know, that's that motivation thing. And sometimes your imagination starts shifting to other, you know, you're like that meme of the guy with his arm around the girl looking at the other girl. And you're like, you know, stay focused, man.
Right.
So yeah, that's great advice. Consider your players, you guys. Was that abrupt or what?
Yeah.
I mean, that's how the tune-up segment works, you guys.
God, it's drilled right in my brain, man. Thanks.
Well, here, when we have one of our guests coming in to give us their perspectives on games, one of the things that we like to do is let our guests tune us up a bit. So, Mark, what is the tune-up we would like to get from Brandon for our benefit as GMs and podcast hosts? All
right, Brandon, we got a question for you, and you let us know what's what. What's your pet peeve at the table? What's the thing that just gets your goat?
Oh man.
No names.
It's not having a reliable person at the table. And I would say that's more of like an attendance thing. I understand when people have something that comes up last minute. I understand real life. So all of us have other things going on in our world besides being at that table. But I think respecting everybody else's time, making it as much of a possible way of being there, or giving notice that gives people chances to make other plans and do other things. That by far and away is what grinds the most with I just, if I don't have someone that reliably can be there, then it just throws a wrench in the entire night. And then it also, you lose a lot of momentum when you think you're about to keep going week after week on something, and you just have to keep stopping.
People just forget details. Like, you go past a week,
Right.
and I'm forgetting details as a GM. Imagine what the players are doing.
Right.
Like players, you're lucky if they retain a small percentage of what you're throwing out there. Attendance is a big one. Ben, do you got any, Ben? What's yours?
Pet peeves? Boy,
people chewing gum and putting it on the bottom of your new table.
Here's one thing I think is challenging as a GM that I struggle with. And I don't know if this is about them or about me, but we play a lot of these genre games. We're not playing D&D all the time. We play a lot of everything. And as we experiment with these different places, one of the things that's challenging for me as a GM is when you have players create characters for a game that don't look like they've really kind of dug into the setting very much. So, if you have people basically creating characters that don't feel like they belong kind of in that setting, or if they're kind of creating characters with weird kind of side or meta stuff. I'll give you an example. This is sort of a toy example. It's not one that I think I've really seen, but if you're playing a superhero game, you're expecting characters that are somewhere in the realm of I don't know, like who are our favorite comic book heroes? A Superman, a Batman, a Spider-Man, a Daredevil, take your pick, right? I've met people who are the kind of people who are going to create a superhero whose power is they can manipulate string. Now, could that be useful? Absolutely. It does feel like a little bit of a kind of a marginal, weird side thing you'd get out of a Mystery Men kind of movie, as opposed to, what you'd see on the front of a comic book.
Yeah, like as a GM, what are you supposed to do with that?
Right. So that's kind of my pet peeve. Mark, how about you? What is it that you have a hard time with?
I don't know what my biggest pet peeve is right now, but I know when like phones were really kind of getting bigger, everybody had their phones. When I was playing in person, it drove me nuts seeing people on their phones. Like, that just pissed me off. And to the point where I was like, can you just put your phones away? Like, put them up by the top of the stairs, like out of you, because you obviously can't handle being away from your phone. Like, just go put it away. That just drives me crazy because I'm seeing it. I'm seeing how distracted and how uninterested they are in the story that we're all trying to tell together. And I don't know. I don't see it as much because I'm playing online now. So I'm sure everybody's got a second screen open and they're playing a video game on it. So like, who knows? Who knows?
Well, Mark, I don't think we should end quite on that note. I mean, here we are, being all down. Brandon, why don't you take us out here with what is kind of one of your favorite things at the table when you see players doing that?
Oh yeah, I will challenge people to be multidimensional in characters. I would love to see more of, and I do see, but I'd love to see more of creating characters that have flaws, that have not the min max character trying to just squeeze every ounce of whatever could be the best combo out there. It's not a video game, and I think you're losing a lot of opportunity for good role playing and having a fun time with that character development if you make the story, the backstory, why the character's there and what makes them so unique, and why you want them at that table. If you would have invested in that in creation of a character, I think you would get so much more out of the character. So I love when I see people bring characters that just have a lot of body to them.
Awesome.
we're with you on that. But I think our time is about up here on Tabletop Tune-Up. Ben, we got some exciting stuff coming down the future here. What do we have in the works?
Well, we've got a lot of exciting stuff coming up. We're going to keep doing some of our system reviews for games we've played.
I think we have Traveler on deck next for our system reviews, right?
All right. Is it going to be Traveler?
Might just be. We'll see.
All right. Well, so we've got a lot of fun stuff coming up, you guys, and we'll look forward to bringing that to you when we meet next in a couple weeks. Until then, keep those dice rolling.
Tune up, level up your fun. Tune up, your quest has now begun. Tune up, we'll show you how it's done. Tune up, tune up. Tune up, tune up. Tune up, level up your fun. Tune up, your quest has now begun. Tune up, we'll show you how it's done. Tune up, tune up. Tune up, tune up. Come get your tune up. It's time for your tune up. Your game needs a tune up. Come get your tune up. It's time for your tune up. Your game needs a tune up. It's time for your tune up. Your game needs a tune up. Tune up, tune up, tune up, tune up. Tune up. Tune up.